Hello, good evening and welcome back for another video. Tonight we are going to be talking about the particular challenges that we have to overcome in our right hand when we are playing on the outer strings, that is the A string and the C string. If you're new here, my name is Julia Morneweg and on this channel we talk about all things cello playing. If you like my content, please smash that like button, consider subscribing, and now via the link below, you can even leave me a little tip, which helps me greatly to continue developing the channel further. And newsflash, this week, do stay tuned because in the next couple of days, I have got a little surprise for you. But for now, let's get started with today's topic. Every week, I always start with this list in my mind of what kind of video I want to make this week and what I want to talk about, which piece or which topic. And then I get all your messages and questions from the previous videos, and they always throw up so many questions that invariably I end up making videos on something completely different what I had set out to do, because your questions are so interesting. And it so happens that in the last couple of weeks, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of you all asked in the comments about exactly the same thing. And that is, can you talk about playing on the A string and the C string? Particularly in response to my last détaché video, lots of people saying, yeah, it's all very nice, it works great on the middle 2 strings, but what do I need to do on the A and the C string? So tonight we're going to dig into that in a little bit of depth. I'm going to take each string in turn. I'm going to talk about the A string first and about the C string thereafter, but there is one thing, of course, which we need to talk about first, and that is, in a nutshell, why do we need completely different bowing angles on the outer string? Well, when you look down towards a bridge, of course, you can see the bridge is not entirely, but reasonably flat here across the middle 2 strings, and then there is quite a steep angle to either side, to the A and to the C, and of course we need to follow round and adapt to that change in angle, because otherwise we're going to be playing with a very crooked bow. So first up, the A string. If you haven't done so already, please take a look at a video I made last month, which is called The Most Important Thing to Get Right. And the most important thing to get right is all about correct setup and of the cello and posture. Because if that aspect isn't right, you are going to be finding it really, really, really difficult. So I link that video below, and in that video I really, as usual, dissect in great detail about everything to do with setup. And one thing you can see here, and which I talk about in this video as well, is that I don't have my cello sort of entirely flat, nor, God forbid, falling out to the side. Why? Because that means I would need to reach much further round with my right arm to get onto the A string. So what I do instead is I always tilt my cello inwards a little bit. I've got my right knee sort of slightly behind this corner of the cello here, and what that does is it brings the A string up a little bit. It brings the A string a little bit closer, and that is a really, really, really good hack to make life for your right arm a lot easier. That said, a great many cellists have got the habit of bringing their arm up far more than is necessary for playing on the A string. So I want to first of all talk about how I approach the A string. And so the little trick that I always teach my students is don't sort of straight away go around and do that. Find the D string. Find the D string. And now, as you can see, my hand is sort of reasonably flat. The wrist is not collapsing. It's active, but it's also not doing that. So there's a fairly sort of straight line here, and you can see that the elbow is really, really, really low. Yeah, so that's a D string. Now, if you look down towards your bridge, check out how big is the actual physical distance between your bow hair and the A string. And what you will see is it's millimeters, yeah, no more than that. Now, to cover millimeters, we do not need any brutal measures in the arm here. All we need is slightly release your fingers and you're on the A string. Hello. So, as you can see, my starting point on the A string in the arm is absolutely no higher than it is on the D string at the heel. So you see, so I'm not starting with my arm already raised. And the arm already being raised at the heel is the root cause of most bowing problems that people have on the A string. So by eliminating that, you have already eliminated a really big part of the issue. So now, of course, we talked about a minute ago that the angle here is different. So the trajectory of the bow on the A string is completely different. So you're not, as you do on the middle strings, going straight out to the side. You are going, if you sort of open up your arm and point there, you're pretty much going sort of right in front of you. Yeah, if you take your right arm and you stretch it out, that's pretty much where you are going to be aiming. Whenever I teach this to small kids, I usually sort of sit on the floor over there and always challenge them to aim the screw of the bow for the tip of my nose. And so that's an image you can put in your mind if you really want to, but maybe just remember that's roughly where you need to go. So that's where we're aiming for. So we are not going to the side, we are going out and in front. So, and that is simply, in the first instance, an adjustment we need to make, not an arm, there's nothing turning around in our arm, but can you see that and this is now, where the right pinky takes on a really important role, because the right pinky works a little bit like a rudder. You see, it controls which way the tip of the bow points. So yeah, so that's why it's important not to do that, not to lock it, not do anything like that. It needs to have that flexibility. So that's the first thing. How do we adjust that angle? So you want to be very flexible here between pinky and thumb, because you, as we'll see later on the C string as well, it's almost like you sort of need to, you know, get into a sort of specific corner with that. I always describe it a little bit like most of us all have in our broom cupboard somewhere this kind of mop for the floor, which has got this twisty bendy bit at the bottom, right? So we can get into all the sort of nooks and crannies. And the wrist works in much the same way. It's as I said before, it's not an active joint. It's a joint that helps us sort of even out all the little adjustments that we need to make, all the little sort of compensations that we need to make. Yeah, so we are now at that angle, but you see my elbow is still down. Nothing has lifted. So same story now. Upper arm, starts, and you see how far that takes you. And it takes me pretty much the same distance as it would on any other string, to about sort of 60% in the bow. And now, so you're here, and remember you are aiming right into the front, and this is where your lower arm kicks in. There you go, you see, and I can do all of that even if I'm playing at the absolute tip of the bow on the A string. This is never, ever, ever raised. It's out, but it's not up, and they're two completely different things, and that's really important to note. Out, but not up, because up involves using completely different muscles. Getting the arm out is all about just using your deltoids here to do that. Lifting it up involves actually using the muscles that lift your shoulder blade, and that's not something you ever want to get into, because that becomes very painful very, very quickly. So one more time, recap. Start on the D string, see? So now cover the few millimeters, let your hand go, and hello, you're on the A string. Now adjust the angle so the tip now points to right out and front and away, and you start with your upper arm as usual. Done. Lower arm and back. And that way you can comfortably play on the A string, full length of the bow, with no problems. Now let's look to the other end, the C string. And essentially this is just the complete opposite of what we just did on the A string. So the trajectory here is where you end up is pretty much with your hand pretty much sort of in line with your hip. So you're down there. So you're not there, you're not there, you're not there, you're here. So if you roughly sort of find your hip bone, you more or less end up there, which again means we need to use, even more so here than on the A string, we need to use our wrist, this little bit what I sort of talked about earlier about the mop. Yeah, so we need to get into this little corner, because if I have my hand completely flat like that on the C string, I will end up bowing like that. So what do I need to do instead? Elbow stays down. I am again using my pinky to pull the bow back, and as a result, look what I've got. So here I have now got at the heel much more of a bend. You see, I need to compensate for that. So the wrist needs to be beautifully flexible here. You can't do that with a stiff wrist. Yeah, so that's the first thing. So if you, let's do this the other way. Let's do this the other way around. So if you now start on the G string, arm nice and relaxed. So you just let the heel fall essentially. So you see here, you're there, let it fall. Pinky adjusts the angle, and there you go. Look, and now same arm pulls. I got a question the other day actually from one of my students asking me, Julia, tell me, when you're doing that on the C string, is the upper arm still just opening out to the side, or is it going forwards and backwards? And I think I got that message while I was out and about, I don't know, in a gym or in a supermarket somewhere, and I said, you know what, I've actually got to sit down with a cello and test that out and think about it. Something I've never particularly thought about. And I think the answer is, once you have made that adjustment here with the wrist, you are still just going out to the side. You see, it's still just opening sideways. There There you go. And now the rest is done by the lower arm. And you're going down there. So you're ending up, obviously the whole positioning is slightly different from here to there, but the idea is still the same. So you're not doing anything of that sort. You're going. Now, when we're doing the up bow on the C string, it almost feels like you're sort of pushing something up the hill. So as you can see here, my pronation, the lean on the stick towards the tip of the bow, is really quite pronounced, and we need that to create the friction. Yeah, so I really need to have a very strong lean so I can have that feeling of pushing something up the hill here. There you go. Exercise also to just practice bow changes on the C string, both at the tip and at the heel. At the heel here, we need incredibly sort of soft, pliable fingers, because all the changing is going to be done primarily by the upper arm, and the fingers have to do a lot of cushioning. Here, because obviously the C string takes a lot longer, because the thickness is more than probably twice or 3 times the thickness of the A string, so it takes a lot longer to respond. So everything, it's much more, you know, like suddenly you're driving an 18-ton truck. All the turns need more space and more time. So try that here as well. And one thing you can see here, that when I'm changing, particularly at the tip, you can see that I am almost doing, when I'm changing from down to up, like a sort of pretend mini string crossing to the next string up, but obviously I'm not going that far. But that's, I need to change the angle of attack slightly to grip the string to make the next note speak again, because if we don't have that, you get something like that. So that's also a question I got the other day, actually, about the détaché, the lower arm détaché, whether, you know, the upper arm is sort of, because I told you there, you know, to really just hinge from the elbow and not from the upper arm, whether the upper arm is, you know, completely immobile, completely stiff. As you can see here, when I'm doing that particular bow change, there is this tiny movement here, that tiny wave that you are using here at the but again, that movement is really just a result of what's happening in the lower arm, and it's just a little bit of cushioning that's going on there. Yeah, so try that out. The C string, I think, first of all, it feels a little bit weird because you're having to work with your hands in a place where you can't even see it. It's all the way down here. So it feels like you're very, very, very far away. So that's something to spend some time on. but I do hope that these pointers give you some clues as to what to watch out for and how to work on that. So, as usual, pop your comments and questions below, and without a hint of a doubt, they will probably give me the idea for the next series of videos to do. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon.